Hello and welcome to Nothing Important, episode 22. This episode features two interviews, one with MC Frontalot, the godfather of nerdcore hip-hop, and Patrick Fabian, who plays Howard Hamlin on the TV show Better Call Saul. The mid-show music break will feature MC Frontalot himself with the song Stoop Sale. Enjoy, and let's go.
You're listening to Nothing Important. Please enjoy the show. That's great. That works.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the Somewhat Important Hotline is the world's 579th best rapper, MC Frontalot.
Hello.
MC, thanks for coming on our show.
Howdy. Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. Real quick before we get started, should we call you MC or Frontalot or MC Front? How would you prefer to be addressed?
You can call me Damien or Front or Frontalot or MC Frontalot. Don't call me just MC because that's weird. That's like calling your principal Mr. Belvedere, calling him Mister instead of one of the things that are his name.
Okay, absolutely. Well then, Frontalot or Damien it is. I'll probably bounce back and forth because I have a habit of doing that. So
I will answer to anything, believe it or not.
All right. Well, Damien, you are known as the grandfather of nerdcore hip hop, and I try to explain nerdcore hip hop to my friends. Dave gets it, but a lot of people do not. How do you describe the genre of nerdcore hip hop?
Well, it's people rapping. It's people rapping about stuff, usually that is kind of nerdy, but not always. I think the main thing about it is that you don't have to think you're all that cool. Like usually rappers are pretty cool. Rock stars are pretty cool. Models are pretty cool. There's all kinds of people in the media who are like really cool. And, you know, that's sort of, you're supposed to be, that's part of your job is to be cool. So that everybody thinks you're cool and buys your record and everything. And that works great. And more power to them if they're cool, honestly. But what if you wanted to make raps and you're like a big dweeb and you don't think that you belong in a fancy looking video appearing graceful. But you still want to make raps. So nerdcore might possibly be for you.
Well, that's a good point that you brought up because that's me and Dave have talked on our show a few times. Like if there's two things I don't like about like modern, especially mainstream music is all the whining and all the braggadocio. I guess like it's always I'm either so much cooler than you or I'm gonna whine because Daddy didn't hug me enough. And I think what I love about like the nerdcore hip hop genre is that it's kind of just embracing your quirks and having a lot of fun.
Yeah, having fun is good. There's room for having fun in music.
Now, who are your biggest hip hop influences?
Well, I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, and I grew up on that stuff. My favorites were always Public Enemy and De La Soul. Tribe Called Quest.
Gotcha, like Biz Markie and those kind of before gangster became gangster, right?
I was never a big Biz Markie fan. I did love NWA, I gotta say, which was the beginning of gangster rap becoming something people had heard of. I loved those first that first Eazy-E record and that first NWA record. I played them all the time because I was a teenager and They were amazing. They were amazing records. Like nobody had voiced sentiments like those and recorded them and sold them to the general public before. That shit was outrageous. It was nuts. And you were guaranteed to anger and irritate any old people who might be in charge of like whether you should be doing homework or not or what have you.
Absolutely. So when did you first develop MC Frontalot? Because Dave and I were talking, and we'd really like to hear about how MC Frontalot kind of like your persona came to be, and more importantly, what was it like the first time you stepped on stage as MC Frontalot?
I think the first MC Frontalot set that was ever performed was at a CD release party that we were throwing for ourselves for the soundtrack to Young Zombies in Love, which is a rock musical that I wrote with Gabi Alter, who is still my music collaborator all these years later. And I think we did a 3-song set, and it went terribly. I remember seeing the video of it, and I was like, wow, I'm just not going to, I'll just stick to the computer. And I kind of did stick to the computer for years. And just did it as a secret hobby so that people wouldn't expect me to get up on stage and do it. And it wasn't.
Did it go terribly as in like the crowd didn't react, or was it just one of them things? Because Dave and I were in a band for years and years and years, and you know, there's always something that goes wrong with the instruments or the speakers and such. Like what exactly was bad about that?
Oh, the crowd was fine as well as I can remember. It was a very friendly crowd. It's like all of our friends from the Bay Area, I think, people who supported Emerald Rain, which was the theater company that we were part of way back then. Because this has got to be the year 2000 or 2001. I don't remember when I finished that Zombies record, but yeah, it was a lovely room and a lovely evening. The evening wasn't ruined or anything. I remember listening to it and looking at it afterwards and thinking, I am not a rapper. I'm not a good enough rapper to do this when people are watching. I'm good enough at my computer that I can hack together songs, so it sounds like I can rap well and I can create whatever effect I want, but I can't go up there and do it. And I didn't start doing it again live until the Penny Arcade guys were inviting me to their first PAX, and I knew that's like a lot of people. And if a lot of people are going to pay attention to you, you sort of like owe it to them to improve your show to the point where you're not embarrassed and mortified by your own rapping. So I worked on that for a few years, and then it's been fine after that. It's like I'm a serviceable rapper live. I'm fine.
We were discussing that your cadence, your flow is unique. And is that your natural flow? Is that part of the act, or does that just come out of like cutting and pasting, and that's just kind of what it sounds like when you do that?
I don't know. I guess it grew out of cutting and pasting because that was how I was constructing the songs originally. As I got more and more compositions under my belt, probably whatever my style is just kind of developed. And at this point, I don't, make recordings that I'm not going to be able to perform the rap competently because I know I'm going to, any of song that comes out well, I'm going to have to put together a live version of. So,
right. I was also wondering, is that your first project? Did you have any other interest or attempts into music before MC Frontalot came about, or is that your first one and you're still riding your first one?
Mostly my friends were the musicians and were people who were in bands and stuff like that. I was focused on writing, and so yeah, I just kind of fell into the music project being a whole real thing. I was just putting it online, and the fan base built up to where it seemed like a thing to actually do, and then it really was a thing to actually do, and it still is, and I'm very thankful that I get to do it.
So what was your feeling? When did you first realize you're like, holy shit, there's an audience for this. When did you first realize that you had people that were digging your music and wanted to hear you rap?
I mean, it built up very sort of steadily from, nothing. And I was putting some songs on a web page, and then I was doing Song Fight, and that was a little community, and then the Penny Arcade audience was looking at it, and that was a bigger community, much bigger community. And then it's just like random internet strangers, people writing email, writing on the bulletin boards. So it's just slowly accumulated and started to seem more and more real, because when it starts out and it's just a bunch of voices on the internet, it's like, you don't know, they could all be your mom, like with different sock puppets, like trying to make you feel good. You don't know.
Right. Absolutely. That's it. That's the thing about music and the internet nowadays. And me and Dave were also, it allows you to grow an audience without, like, you still got to put the legwork in as a live artist, but it allows you to reach more people more easily, I guess, than it did when you first started. Like, even in 2000, when you first started, like, you've kind of survived and built up through that whole process of where the internet's kind of become the behemoth that it is now.
Yeah, I was there back when. That's what I'll tell them.
You're the alpha.
On my toothless, sitting on the steps on the porch as an old man, I will reminisce about what it was like to be a teenager before music was free and prevalent, and any band that exists in the whole world you could listen to just by thinking about their name out loud.
Right, and absolutely, even just like distributions of your videos. You go on YouTube and you search MC Frontalot, you have a lot of really well produced videos that are there for anybody to watch as many times as they want to watch. And even in 2000, like, that was still kind of unheard of.
No, there was no YouTube or anything. There were 4 videos on the entire internet. One of them was a horse having an orgasm. One of them was a whale getting dynamited. But all of them were 100 pixels by 60 pixels, and you had to download them overnight, and then install a real video player, and then uninstall it because it didn't work, and then install it again. And that was the process. And now you have YouTube. The superior video experience.
Oh,
awesome.
This flashed back to the good old days. Sorry.
Yeah, and you actually had you actually did a cameo on Sesame Street, correct?
Sort of. I did. Pardon me. I did a song for a DVD they were making for very young audience that covered potty training basics, and there were songs about things, like the accidents all happen, stuff like that. And it's all full of Muppets, and it's awesome. And they brought me in at the last minute to replace the audio for the segment about the tour of the toilet paper factory. They thought it would be better with like a rap instead of a guy explaining how toilet paper is made in a sort of a monotone voice.
Dave and I, we were talking about, that's another thing we were talking about before we got on the, I guess on the Skype machine with you. I was like, oh, and he worked with Sesame Street. And I just find that so incredibly awesome, because if there's some things I secretly want to be, it's definitely like a voice actor, whether it be for Muppets, Sesame Street, or cartoons. Like when I see little tidbits like that, I just think that's amazingly cool.
I want to do voice work too. I wish I could be on all the cartoons. I've always wished I could be on all the cartoons. I want to be in video games too. If you know,
I just
anybody,
watched that. I know that voice documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
And yet that totally just drives it up, because everybody's just having a good time. It's like looks like the greatest job ever.
What kind of video games are you playing right now?
Let's see. Today I played a couple hours of some Deus Ex thing that they made in 2011.
Okay, Ex Machina or something like that.
Deus Ex is that old sci-fi RPG from the late 90s. It was like super serious game. Like all the super serious gamers took it real important. And I never had the patience for it, and I always felt very deficient. So I picked up this new version of it on a Humble Bundle, and I just was checking it out last night and today, and it's got all the things I didn't like about the original one. I probably won't keep playing it. I've also been playing Hitman Absolution, which was also from that same Humble Bundle. That one's okay. Every video game, not every single video game, almost all the AAA titles are so clearly made for Xbox and PlayStation controllers these days that like PC, like real PC gaming is a little, I don't know. I feel like it's degraded a bit by that, by the fact that everything has to be a cross-platform hit to justify its budget.
Right, yeah. Like video games are just like ridiculously expensive. You know, they have budgets bigger than movies. That's absolutely insane.
And they make more money than movies, so I guess it makes sense. But it's annoying to me to sit there and play it with my Xbox controller on the PC and then pick up the mouse like a sane person when it's time to aim for shooting. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I want
absolutely
frustrating.
I totally agree. I think the last game I played on a PC was probably Doom 2.
Wow.
That's long ago. But I'm a Nintendo guy. Like to this day, I still play a ton of Nintendo. I got the Wii U, absolutely love it. So
gotcha.
So when you're actually hitting the road next weekend, you're going to kind of be in our neck of the woods. You're going to be in Indianapolis.
I will be in Indianapolis for an InfoSec conference. And I always wonder whether the hackers know how like ignorant and powerless I am when they invite me to the shows. So they hear a couple songs about data encryption. They think I know everything they know about everything, but I don't know anything about hacking. And I'm terrified when I go to DEF CON to even like turn on the Wi-Fi on my phone. I'm going to get owned at any moment. I just know it.
And then the next weekend, you're in Ann Arbor, Michigan for the Summer Festival?
Yeah, Summer Festival, top of the park. So yep. Circle City Con and then Ann Arbor Summer Festival. And if I had the details on the tip of my tongue, I'd be better at being a radio guest. But instead, I will direct you to frontalot.com where the info is.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I see that you kind of have, you have the 3 shows coming up, but when are you planning like a big, like full on the road tour, or are you adding shows as you go along, or are these one-offs during your downtime?
We sort of always have these fly-out shows and one-offs and weekends that we do. That's stuff that we get invited to, the band and I. But the van tour is a much bigger production, and you got to get everybody like away from their families and whatever else makes them happy for 2.5 months. It's an ordeal. And if I were going out in the fall, I probably would have to have already gotten them to start trying to get that time free. So I wonder if I'm maybe not going out in the fall this year, even though I was thinking about it. I only am dedicated to getting back on the road when an album comes out. Because it makes the most sense, and you kind of like can combine your press efforts to getting people to know that you're on the road and getting people to know that there's a record out. The tours in between albums don't do as well, but I still want to do them because we missed a bunch of places on our last big run at the end of last year in the fall, and I kind of want to go through and catch all the cities that we missed. So I don't know. If I don't make it out in the late fall, I will make it out in the spring.
Awesome. Well, if you come to Chicago, me and Dave will definitely be sure to be there.
Right on.
Real quick, the question we always ask all of our guests on the show is, what is your favorite frozen pizza?
You mean like a pizza that you purchase in a frozen state and then you take it to your home and you heat it and then you eat it by yourself?
Yes. You know it.
And I should be aware of the different brands and prefer one over another.
Indeed. Everybody has their brand. I'm a Tony's guy.
I'm a Tombstone guy.
Gotcha. Can I be really honest with you guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I haven't bought groceries just to have them in the house since maybe 2004.
Really? 10 years? That's a good run.
I'll buy a bag of groceries, but it's because I'm entertaining. You know, I need like a bunch of snacks for a party. I'm like making a brunch for some people or whatever. Like I'll buy a bag of groceries, but I don't keep the fridge stocked, and the cabinets are like bare, and the freezer doesn't even have frozen food that I could eat whenever I want. And the reason is, ever since I moved to New York City, it's this weird food Shangri-La where you go downstairs and you get like hot or cold prepared food 24 hours a day, and it's cheaper than groceries. So, and you don't have to clean up. You know, it's like, it's nuts. I go out and buy food every day, and then I sit at my table and eat it, and then I throw the garbage away, and I don't clean up after myself from food preparation, and it's kind of great. Or perhaps it's horribly tragic. It's like sort of thing that like you'd see at the opening of a movie about a sad bachelor who's like, you know, never gonna be happy. But unlike other sad bachelors, I don't have a favorite frozen pizza. That was a long answer.
No, that's okay. That was a perfect answer. Actually, me and Dave, we because back in the day when we had our band, frozen pizza was always part of our like pre-show ritual. Yeah. And so when we started doing the podcast, we're like, oh, well, let's just start asking people this question because it's kind of a ridiculously stupid question, but I feel it's one everybody can identify with. So it's actually kind of become really interesting to me and Dave to hear people's answers, because some people are like, I don't eat frozen pizza. And then some of our other guests have talked about like special toppings they put on it, or regional brands and such. So that you know, long-winded or not, that was a great answer. For some reason, we find that question incredibly intriguing.
Well, right on. So if I do buy a frozen pizza, which one should I get? Tombstone or Tony's?
See, I say go with Tony's, because you can cook that shit in like 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Like, okay.
I fully understand it's like a totally a thin, crappy crust with probably generic cheese. But man, it's so good.
See, my argument for Tombstone, since I'm a little bigger than Brian by like 5-10 pounds, and Tombstones are a little thicker. They take a little longer to cook, but they're thicker and they're more fillings. I make it like 3 meals.
Gotcha. Okay. But they both taste terrible, right? I mean,
yes.
They don't differ on taste. Neither of them tastes good. That's not.
You might as well just smash a tomato into a cracker and pour salt on it.
Oh, actually, that sounds great. Maybe I'll go get a very limited set of groceries, just some crackers and salt and like a tomato.
They taste terribly delicious.
I think I have salt, actually.
Well, look at that. You're like a third there.
Yeah,
you're like
third of the way there.
You can make like MC Frontalot pizzas.
There we go.
That's genius marketing right there.
MC Frontalot. That's awesome.
All right, Damien. MC Frontalot, thank you so much for coming on the Nothing Important podcast and just kind of BSing with us today. For everybody out there, if you're in Indianapolis, June 13th, go check them out at Circle City Con. If you're in Ann Arbor, June 21st, please go to the Summer Festival. MC Frontalot, your website's frontalot.com, and thank you so much for talking to me and Dave.
Brian, David, thank you very much. See you later.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
This episode's mid-show music break is MC Frontalot with the song Stoop Sale off his album Solved. For more information and tour dates, check out frontalot.com.
I nearly blew right by in my hurry to the subway when I heard someone say, "Isn't autumn lovely?" As I stopped to observe this was correct to the proprietor, couldn't help but inspect the Fulton table by the railing laden with her goods. Ashtrays made of metal, little angels made of wood, hand mirror with the handle broken, still pretty nice. Wall wart to charge telephone, trays to make ice. The advice of my neighbor, go ahead, take your time, we'll negotiate price on whatever you find. And then shining in the detritus, I saw the brightest flash of something precious, began to feel the slightest little tingle tingle in my innards. I was like, what's that? And then her bare tooth chuckle. It's a buckle for a strap on a hat, like a lady wears to court or church, but it holds a special property. I'll tell you how it works. It was a stoop sale, which is a garage sale. If you lived in Brooklyn, which I do. And at the stoop sale, which is like a yard sale, except that it's in Brooklyn, I got my due. It was a stoop sale, which is a garage sale. If you lived in Brooklyn, which I do. And at the stoop sale, which is like a yard sale, except that it's in Brooklyn, I got my due. Somehow I knew she was serious. I reached to pick it up, but she stayed my hand. Her reprimand, it was abrupt. Hey, this little trinket, she said, grants wishes. It can make anything you ever eat delicious. It can take away concerns so you can sleep at night. Can make the love of your life and you reunite. Can right wrongs done in your past or in your future. Make a winner out of whoever owns it roots for. But it only ever does one thing. As you take possession of it, that's the wish to which it clings. So choose very carefully before we make a deal. If there's anything impossible you want to make real, if there's anything improbable you'd like to assure, well, it will happen. That's when you have to endure the regret that accompanies said decision making. All the other wishes in the world that you've forsaken at the stoop sale, which is a garage sale. If you lived in Brooklyn, which I do. And at the stoop sale, which is like a yard sale, except that it's in Brooklyn, I got my due. It was a stoop sale, which is a garage sale. If you lived in Brooklyn, which I do. And at the stoop sale, which is like a yard sale, except that it's in Brooklyn, I got my due. Could it be true? I wondered as I stared at the glass. Would some skills on the microphone be too much to ask? Had a couple dark notions that involved revenge, fame, glory, money, people love me, and it never ends. Shook these from my head like there was so much sleep, and thought instead I pretend that I was so much deep as to offer every human in the world true peace, so that we never kill each other, never get cooties, and never go hungry, suffer shelterlessness. This generosity I felt compelled to dismiss by my greed to see an old friend back living. If I go the wrong direction though, could I ever be forgiven? While I stood daydreaming, somebody got a hold of this little brass buckle, and he must have been so bold as to put it in his pocket without it getting caught. Saw him do it. He was wishing that he wouldn't get caught. All at the stoop sale, which is a garage sale. If you lived in Brooklyn, which I do. And at the stoop sale, which is like a yard sale, except that it's in Brooklyn, I got my due. It was a stoop sale, which is a garage sale. If you lived in Brooklyn, which I do. And at the stoop sale, which is like a yard sale, except that it's in Brooklyn, I got my due.
You're listening to Nothing Important.
Ladies and gentlemen, on the Someone Important Hotline, we have Patrick Fabian, who plays Howard Hamlin on Better Call Saul. Patrick, welcome to our little podcast.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Dave. Glad to be here.
Yeah, first things first, I wanted to publicly apologize for getting Ray Seahorn and Julianne Emery to bully you on Twitter to come on our show.
First, okay, I will counter by saying I was totally going to come on before those ladies bitch slapped me on social media. However, you're going to be bitch slapped by somebody. Ray Seahorn and Julianne Emery are the ones to be bitch slapped by. So here I am. I couldn't be happier.
Well, good. Good. We're glad to have you, and incredibly honored, as you probably guessed. You know, Dave and I are big fans of the show, and of course our listeners out there. You know, we've gotten great responses for the interviews with the location scouts and Julie and Ray, and you were one of the people. Everybody was like, you know, get Howard on. So so we're glad you're here, and we finally were able to connect.
Well, I'm really excited. As a matter of fact, I saw the whole cast over the last 2 nights. We were at the LA screenings, which is where Sony has where international broadcasters come and look at what they're selling for the year. And even though Better Call Saul is pretty much already blanketed worldwide with Netflix and some other sales, we were there to meet everybody. And it was really great to see everybody and sort of see the worldwide reaction that's already happening. But even more important, like the band hadn't been together since we stopped filming back in October. So it was great to have everybody there together and see one another. So it was really excited to see one another.
Well, that's good. You know, when does production start on season 2? Do you guys have a timeline for that? It would have to be coming up soon, I would think.
Yeah, we're going back in, I think mid-July is when it gets cranking. And
okay.
Just like last year, I would love to be able to tell you, I can tell you what I think might happen, but I don't have any idea hardcore. They haven't been letting any of those cats out of the bag at all. So much like last year, I think it'll be the same wonderful experience of you get the script. Sometimes you get the script like a day before we started shooting an episode because they were fine tuning it and cranking it out. And
Wow.
as an actor, I don't mind that. That's fine because honestly, if you give me too much time to think about it, I'll start thinking I'm the director and the writer and the producer, and it's kind of better if it just sort of lands in my lap and we go from there. So I have a feeling it's going to be probably the same sort of situation this year as well. But mid-July is when we're heading back to the Great BBQ.
Well, good. We're looking forward to it, and you talk about, they keep fine tuning and changing the script and Howard Hamlin, it turns out he wasn't quite the dick that everybody thought he was.
Hey, how about that? Not a douchebag at all, after all. Not that much of a douchebag.
Right. And I'm just going to go on record. If you listen to I don't have the episode number, but if you listen to our podcast, I totally called that way early in the season.
Yeah, Brian did.
Oh, did you really? Okay.
Yeah, I think
there was an onslaught of like, screw you, man, because it's Better Call Saul. People are on Saul's side. They see the world through him, and also the story is told through his eyes in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so consequently, as soon as Saul says in the beginning in episode 1 that I'm a dick and he calls me Lord Vader, then we take it as fact as audience.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until we get to episode 9 where it's revealed that. That's it. I guess Chuck sucks. Absolutely. Name, instead of have Linda go this, as they changed to fuck Chuck on Twitter. That was nice. But when we were playing it, like I said, the scripts were being doled out, and we didn't really have any sort of season-long arc given to us because I don't know if they really knew exactly where they were going to. Part of their creative process, what I understand, is they don't have everything planned out. I mean, obviously, we know how this links up to Breaking Bad in a number of years. We know that. So we know where Saul's character ends up. But everybody else is a loose cannon, and that tale can be told however the writers, feel the need. And so consequently, when we started shooting the beginning, I remember Vince directed the first episode, and he just sort of gently reminded me that, don't worry about what I read in the script about what other people say about me necessarily.
Right.
He goes, I think Howard's a good guy. Howard's a good guy. That's what he would say. And I was like, give me the next ... So I want you to play it like ... But he would never give me that. He would just sort of put in my ear, hey man, Howard's kind of a good guy. And so I looked at that a lot. So when I got the lines, I would never try and do that, the snidely whiplash, the twirling of the mustache sort of stuff on it whatsoever.
That's awesome because I was going to make a comment about that, how when the reveal came, it wasn't like a shocking transition. There's always a thought in the back of your head, like, Howard might actually be kind of a good guy, maybe just like a scapegoat for something else. Or like the messenger bearing the bad news.
As that happens, then all of a sudden I'll be honest, as an actor, first of all, I was like, oh, I'm the poker up Jimmy's ass. This is awesome. I'm the dick. I am Lord Vader. I'm a douchebag. Who doesn't want to play that as an actor? It's totally fun. But it gets one-dimensional like that,
Right.
And then all of a sudden when we get to that moment where it's like, it's like the goodwill I sort of stocked up by not necessarily really being a douchebag lends itself to like, oh, he's actually not as powerful as you think at all. As a matter of fact, he's much shakier ground than we ever imagined. And it goes from being this, this slick guy in the suit who's perfect, who runs the company. It goes from that sort of like real authoritarian figure to somebody who might be a little more hollow than we expect. And that makes it sad. And it makes it almost sad, like, oh, Howard's not in control at all like we thought he was, which then I think lends itself to a myriad of interesting storylines of, well, why is that?
Right.
Is there money problems? Are there drug problems? Or are there Chuck issues? Or clearly there's a Chuck issue. Or is Howard just such a silver spoon guy who never really had the lawyer smarts, but he has the name, so he sits there, and that's why he needs Chuck so badly. I don't have those answers. This hasn't been given to me, but it makes your boy. I'm just talking the entire time on this podcast. I'm so sorry, gentlemen.
It's an interview,
man.
I'm just rambling.
Yeah, this is your time.
You're actually answering a few questions that I had in mind as you're going on. So I'm just keep going.
Right, and then we're done. Thanks so much for Patrick being busy.
Well, as the actor, what was Patrick Fabian's reaction to finding out that Howard wasn't as much of a jerk as they were kind of leading people to believe?
I'm sorry, whose reaction to that?
Yours.
The person, not the character.
Yeah.
Good, great. You know what? My reaction was, thank God I didn't get a bullet in my head. That's always an actor's number one concern. No blood. And if there's blood, don't make it mine.
Like at the end of the season, you're cheering, like, all right.
When I first read it, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, I mean, there is that weird thing of like, oh, Chuck gets the thunder. Because that's, I mean, when he calls him a chimp with a machine gun, it's so devastating.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, if Howard said that, it would be almost expected. And it wouldn't have nearly the punch that it holds coming from Chuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Right.
And so consequently, for me, it took to episode 9 to start to get a real handle of like, oh, Howard is really not what because you do make assumptions as an actor. You have to make some assumptions, even if things aren't written. You have to play things with a certain amount of 3D realism, right? You have to make your world. You have to make your point of view. You have to make your history and all that sort of thing. So I kept in mind that, I kept in mind what Vincent dropped in my ear about, I think Howard's really a good guy. And that comes to that idea of, if people perceive you as saying something bad, that's interesting. But as a character or as an actor, just on a practical level, I think you always have to assume that you are not a bad person, that you are just looking at the world through your point of view. So consequently, as I was playing Howard, it was always like, why is Jimmy not taking my advice? Why is Jimmy not taking my olive branch? Why is Jiminy not listening to good, I just called him Jiminy? I just did call him Jiminy. Well, you know why? Because it's a paternal thing as well. Even though I'm not even sure what the age break is, I think Howard very much, because of his position, has always thought of Jimmy as sort of a ward, not a son, but somebody who he is there to take care of because of Chuck. And so therefore, I think he wants to help him out. And so when Jimmy scorns him and acts like a teenager, frankly, with his histrionics at me, especially because I am not the dick,
Right.
I think it hurts Howard. And it hurts Howard because he can't say anything. And so in episode 9, we find out, that we find out why. Well, it's how we begin to find out why. At least we find out where the puppeteering is really coming from.
Right.
And you realize that sort of Howard's more adrift. And as an actor, we've just, logged one season down. It does make it interesting because what's he going to do now?
Right.
Is he going to try and help Jimmy? Or is he going to have to fight Jimmy? Or is Jimmy going to try and burn down, metaphorically, the law firm? Or am I going to see him in court? Am I actually going to help him because I feel guilty? I don't know. But all the interesting things to look forward to playing,
Absolutely. And that's what I'm interested in as well, is actually then seeing how, because kind of the cat's out of the bag with Chuck, now it is presumably out in the open, and and plus I want to see how Howard and Chuck are going to interact with each other as well, now that everything is kind of out in the open.
It is out in the open, but then that draws in a couple of questions immediately. Like, okay, with Chuck's electricity aversion, I mean, this is something we talked about before. If he's so goddamn important to the firm, to Hamlin, and McGill, then why didn't Howard have, the top-notch doctors and medical staff at his house 24/7 to take care of that?
Yeah.
Chuck was sort of, the fact that Chuck was sort of left on his own, almost like an indigent in his own home, then that makes me go, well, what's that story? Is Howard carrying up to a point, or does he have a financial? Maybe his financial house is more of a house of cards, and Chuck doesn't know that, or Chuck does know that. It's all those sort of things that are these what ifs that are very shaky logs. Sort of like your like those lumberjacks spinning those logs. It's that sort of thing. It really, sometimes I think about it, like lawyers on logs. It's like the Jackson Brown cover, lawyers in love on top of the car with their paddle. Now I'm just crazy.
Right. Well, that's one thing Dave and I always talk about on the podcast is the fact that the way that the writing is done, it like nothing really hits you over the head. It always leaves room to maneuver in many different directions. So what happens to us is, me and Dave employ the swag method, the silly wild ass guess method of trying to make predictions for the next episode, how the season's going to end up. And then we get we get comments from listeners be like, dude, you were way the fuck off. Like, where the hell did you come up with that? But But I think.
On, don't you feel great? When
Yeah,
you
no,
nail it,
it's-
you're like, dude, I told you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, I knew that Tuco was going to be the big reveal in the first episode, and that was just like throwing a dart at a board of pictures.
You know what? When we got the script, like when I got the final script on table read day, we get to Albuquerque. Everybody's there. You know, it's first day of school. Doesn't matter how long you've been in the business. It's first day of school, and you're shaking hands, and you're meeting everybody, and you're nervous, and you're assuming you're going to get fired. All that sort of craziness is going through your head. And then we sit down and start reading the script. So we read the script, and we get to the final page. And, I mean, these are the people who are going to be making the show. And the last page is redacted. Like it's a CIA file. It's a fact. It doesn't have a character name. It doesn't tell you what the fuck happens. And so we read this, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And it was like the longest time until I knew it was him. But I have to say, it was so sort of not on my radar that when I saw the pilot at our premiere, I equally was there. When the door opens and it's him, I go, oh, no shit. And I got chills. I was like, wow, you know, as if somehow I had missed the show I was in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I predicted Hank Schrader because I was trying to think of who was who would be, because it was a thing like everybody was talking about, you know, like a returning bad guy, and then I think I overthought it. I was like, well, who would naturally be a bad guy to Saul? And I was like, well, it appears that they kind of knew each other the first time that Badger guy got arrested, so maybe he is like the big cameo in the first episode. So, but there's just so many different ways that it's written, and so many different ways it can go, you know, and it's kind of fun to hear that even though you guys are directly involved, obviously acting out your characters and establishing your characters, like in a lot of ways, you're in the same boat we are, just trying to figure out where the hell it's going to go when, you know, it's just like a handful of people that actually.
Yeah, you know, and the first time we saw the flashbacks, I was like, what? We're going to Chicago. What? You know, and then all this time shifting thing, and and they don't use it as a gimmick. I mean, it really utilizes it in terms of what its storytelling is, and I just thought it's really crazy because we've watched Breaking Bad, right? We have these events in our lives already. We know what is going on, so you come to this story with that story in tow. And so when you start dropping markers 10 years previous, and then we also know where Saul ends up in the end in Nebraska, it's like you're asking, you know what, you're allowing your audience the intelligence to go ahead and be able to drop markers from 4 different time zones while you're talking to a story, and you can develop a richness of a line, a look, or a reference over 3 lifespans. And I think that's really cool. And that's the only reason I ever suggested anybody to watch Breaking Bad before watching this, is because I said, you know, you're going to love the palette that you see, but it's a much richer palette if you know what's going on. Literally in landscapes and shots, diners and things like that. You know, the first time we see Mike at the diner, we're like, well, that's sweet. That diner had so much going on in it. But if you didn't see the show, I'm not going to throw my parents under the bus, then you wouldn't know what's going on.
Right, me and Dave, I think one of our original plans was try to develop some sort of timeline for the website, but then the show ended up after Breaking Bad and then came back like 6 years prior, and then I think like at the 3rd episode it went like, you know, a few years before that, and then at some point it was revealed that he had been in New Mexico already for 10 years, and me and Dave were just like, okay, we're just going to leave this to people way smarter than us. And just trust it.
There's somebody with even more time on their hands than you two who are going to do it.
Right, yeah.
We'll just present it to the rest of the fans if they present it to us, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
There you go. Take
Hint,
credit for it when it comes up. That's all.
One question I don't know if Dave, you want to ask the one question that we get all the time, and we've discussed at length on our podcast. Do you want to ask it, or you want me to ask it?
Are you talking about? You go ahead, Brian. You go ahead.
Okay. And the reason I preface it like that is because I haven't seen it answered, but then at the same time, Dave and I feel like you've probably been asked this question a million times. So here goes. Who is the second Hamlin partner?
Oh, it's Sean Connery, and he's my grandfather, and I can't wait for him to be in the second season. That's my fantasy. That's right. But in my mind,
that's the cold open right there.
The second Hamlin is Connery, right? And he's going to be I don't know, the breathing mask or something. I don't know. You know what? I've thought about it, and I've also thought maybe the other Hamlin is deceased. I've always thought of myself. I've always thought of myself not as the second Hamlin, but as the first Hamlin.
The alpha Hamlin.
Yes, absolutely. So, because until that other one is named or brought in, I'm just like, what benefit does it do me to pretend like I'm not in fucking charge? The bigger rank around me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right, Dave.
But no, that has, and I've tried to catch them. I'll be honest. I've tried to catch the writers and Vince and Peter, off guard about something else, and and I'll just say, like, I really like the idea of Hamlin being my grandfather. Who are you going to cast for that? And they'll just look at me. Then it's
Like, nice try.
Talking about it, I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe that's not it.
Yeah, Dave.
Did anybody answer it close? Did anybody have a good idea?
No. My idea is that it's some sort of like legal maneuver. Like, he doesn't really exist, but on paper he exists as a matter of like funneling funds and such. And I believe Dave just kind of came up with the idea, like, well, what if he's just a dead guy and like all they ever say about him is like I think the grandpa thing, like you said. I think Dave. Didn't you say that, Dave?
I think I might have said a father or a brother. I think is what I said.
Yeah, and then the only thing they'd say about him is somebody be like, hey, who's that picture on the wall? And they'd be like, oh, that's my dead uncle, Xavier Hamlin. And then that's it.
Hannibal Hamlin.
We tied into the X-Men all of a sudden. What's going on?
That's right.
Yeah,
I'd watch it.
Yeah, like a shell game. But you know what? But you guys are onto something as well, and it touches on two things. It's one, Vince and Peter have allowed themselves, because of the storytelling that they have established, to allow lateral moves like that would make you go like, this still fits.
Right.
I think the idea that I have a brother missing is weird only because we have a brother situation already.
Mm-hmm.
How?
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But I like the idea that, I didn't mind the fact that there wasn't any daddy figures this time around. And you mentioned that, though, but, who knows? Maybe things go south for the firm and maybe be rescued by, the old behemoth or, the guy who thought he was retired or, I don't know. I don't know. And that's the great thing. And I stare at that logo all the time, but I never once thought I was the second Hamlet. So that just shows that I'm, a narcissist. That's what that shows.
I think that I actually went like the brother angle because I would find it more interesting. Like if there's the two Hamlin brothers, but then there's the two McGill brothers, and so Jimmy has one more thing to kind of be mad about. Like my brother's not letting me in, but Hamlin and Hamlin are in. Something like that.
Right, or even more parallel. I'm not letting my brother in either. Maybe there's a similar situation or a way of keeping. It's maybe it's like the Jinx, not quite as crazy, but it could be like
Right. Do you think we'll see any of the? Do you think we'll get any closure on the Kettlemans when we talk to Julianne? Well, we were thinking of ideas for a spin-off show for her and campaigning pretty hard. So
here's that thing. I don't know if she told you as well. I mean, they were scheduled, I think, for like an episode or something like that.
Yeah.
Or two at Pops. But they came in and just hit such a ballpark, a ball out of the park that, that's just gold. The writers saw them and they're like, oh, we have to write for this. And they did.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're so great. And I was so sorry that sort of like the storyline seemingly has ended. But is it? I mean, he's going to jail, so he's still in Albuquerque. We assume she's still in Albuquerque. I mean, I don't know how you don't have Mrs. Kettleman show up at the show again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah, just
right now, it seems like that storyline is gone. But, as long as you're not dead, I think everything's in play.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
so even if you are dead, you can, even if you are dead, talk to Mike. He's back, so it's all good.
yeah, absolutely. It's we've taken up quite a bit of your time tonight, so I guess I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and congratulations on a great first season of Better Call Saul. I can't wait to see if we get some of our questions answered. And the last thing we always ask our guests, what is your favorite frozen pizza?
My favorite frozen pizza. There used to be a Geno's a long time ago. I'm a Pennsylvania boy. Like the little pizza squares, which I'm sure are the worst things on the planet, but I have such a fond memory of them. So these days, It's Trader Joe's, the Pizza Primavera. That's where I'm going.
That is our second Trader Joe's pizza.
Yeah, that is.
Pizza, yeah, not so bad.
Yeah, awesome. Do you put extra stuff on it?
Wait, I'm going to back at you. What's your favorite frozen pizza?
Oh man, I'd say lately I've been going with Tony's. I've been feeling Tony's a whole bunch.
No, the 6-inch ones, or like the whole big pie noise?
No, I'm a big guy. I eat the whole like 14-incher.
What are these 6-inch things? What are you, some thin actor drinking juice out there in Los Angeles?
Pizza nuggets.
I roll it up. I roll it up like a burrito and just eat it like that.
Oh my God, you know what? I love that image. That's really good. That makes me want to come to Chicago and eat with you.
I tell you what,
Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, and thank you to all your fans who are listening to your broadcast, and thank you all for watching the show and being supportive of it. And I hope that season 2 is equally as awesome, and I'd be more than happy to come back anytime you guys need me to.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Patrick, Fabian. Thank you. You have a great night.
You know,
all right, take care, guys.
Better call quick. Saul, you better call Saul. He'll fight for your rights when your back's to the wall. Stick it to the man, justice for all. You better call Saul.